Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. 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 Hi. What's up?
What's
What's
going
up?
on?
What's happening? How are you today, Callow?
I'm good. I'm good. We got a packed sports day today, like sneaky packed sports day on a Wednesday.
What do you mean? What's going on?
We got Orioles 12:30. We got
Oh,
ye old U.S. Women's National Team at 1, and then all the other Olympic stuff going on leading into the afternoon. So
all right, cool. How about the Orioles? I might get into them later, but actually going for it. How about that?
I
It took a
mean,
new owner prodding them, I think, to do it, but that's what happened here. Yeah.
I think in simple terms, he said to Mike Elias, "Do what you got to do. If you think a deal makes sense, go ahead and do it." Every move they made yesterday seemed to be, high enough risk, not a crazy risk where they were moving, crazy high prospects. But yes, it was like, go ahead, do what you got to do.
No, I think this is like old school when I was a kid and you'd have like marbles and you had all the precious ones and you didn't want to trade with anybody because you thought your marbles were too precious. And finally someone said, give up some of them to get the other ones that are bigger, stronger, faster, and push things out of the way. So my guess is a little bit this is both that the owner going, do it, actually. Do it.
I'm just gonna say you've never sounded older by
Yeah,
talking
I know.
about marbles
I know.
on this show. I'm just letting
I
you
know.
know
I was
that
trying to think what would be something precious, and that's the only thing that came to my mind, and that was a really dumb thing to say,
it's
and
pretty
I'd take
bad.
it out if I could. So
I was gonna go with like Pokemon cards. That would
there's
be
a
when
few
I was
old
a
man
kid.
tendencies that are creeping into daily life for me. Like creaky back, eyesight is here and there, and now I'm bringing up things like marbles. Yeah,
Marbles. What are you
I've
doing over there?
officially lost my marbles.
Yeah,
Yeah, officially
yeah.
lost my marbles. All right, let's get into the Commanders a little bit, who do not practice today. Back at it tomorrow and Friday, then off Saturday, back on it Sunday, and then they'll be heading up to New York next week to get ready for their first preseason game, and they'll have the first joint practice. And first things first, we're not going to see Aaron Rodgers in the game. That's already basically been announced, which I'm not surprised by. They're questioning whether he's going to play at all in the preseason, which off an Achilles at his age and first ballot Hall of Famer, I'm going to go with, I don't know why you would do that. So I guess they're going to figure that out. But let me just stick with us for a little bit. First, yesterday was first one of these. We had a good one. They had Jayden and the offense had moment after moment after moment. Um, we have not seen a lot of, true 11 on 11. They put on the pads Monday. They were back in shells Tuesday. So we just really haven't seen a lot. And I know everybody's like, what does he look like? What's he doing? How's it going? What's happening here? And I have no answer for any of it because I don't feel like they've done very much and they haven't shown very much. But yesterday, and again, in shells, not pads, no one's getting hit, no one's tackling. Speed and intensity are up a little bit, but it's not ratcheted up to game speed yet. We've literally not seen game speed in anything yet that I've seen. They had a really promising day, and Jayden particularly had a very promising day. Just on the field, moments that kind of stand out, couple of great throws. McLaurin going crazy about one particular one I'll tell you about in a minute. A dime to Dotson on the sideline where he made this great catch. So it's the first time I could say and mean it. He looked great. Like the first time I can really honestly say that he looked great.
It sounded like yesterday. I obviously wasn't out there, but the vibes were high. Essentially, is what
Yes.
my takeaway was from following all the beat writers, following you guys, and knowing what was going on. I couldn't help but think I don't think we had a day under Rivera that was like that offensively, because how many years in a row was it the defense barking at the offense or pulling up a little bit so they could run the play that they needed to run?
Jason Wright yelling at Scott because the
That's
quarterback
right.
is airmailing screen passes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was I referenced it on my show yesterday. Montez Sweat and Chase Young screaming at the offensive line,
Yeah.
talking trash every play, even though we kind of knew, like, hey guys, back it up a little bit because it is, practice. And I can't recall there really being a day like this. It was always, oh, Wentz had a good drive or Heineke had a couple good
Yeah.
passes. We did not have the day where Jahan Dotson is losing his mind saying Terry is the best jump ball receiver of all time. He was yelling things that, aren't even true, yet he was so excited that the offense was working yesterday.
Yeah. So we saw Jayden move around a little bit, extend a couple of plays. Again, I pause because he might be being chased, but he's not going to get hit. And he knows this. And again, they're going higher speed, not full speed. Like we haven't seen anything that is an NFL speed yet, but nothing, not in my opinion yet. But that said, there were just a few of these throws, and one in particular to McLaurin that was, if he's going to do this in games regularly, this is where it's going to separate him, and it will be all the promise that you think of. Like this was, he's moving a little bit to his left. There's a pass rush in his face immediately. He's backing up back foot, and he drops one in the bucket, flick of the wrist, 35 yards, 40 yards down the field, right into an in-stride McLaurin. And then McLaurin goes nuts, he's screaming like that's cash money or whatever. I was yelling all this stuff. And these are the plays, these are the moments, and these are the spots. And he has a few of them every day. It's just I want to see it at a higher speed. And it was the first time I saw it yesterday. But every day there's a couple of these where he throws them in spots where, the second he tosses it, I'm just yelling out, catch it, because I know the defender can't. And so there is this kind of next level, glimpses, I think is the best way to put it. Glimpses of next level ability that is the promise of someone being a Heisman Trophy winner and the number 2 overall pick. I mean, these are the things he's supposed to be able to do, but we're literally starting to see them. And the one to McLaurin yesterday was one of those where he throws that in a game, he's heading to the Pro Bowl. Like that's the type of stuff we saw yesterday.
I do have to just put this out there. We have been fooled by this team playing against each other these past few years. And, one of the positions you and I literally talked about yesterday was cornerback. So do you think there's a little bit of a fold there that because cornerback's not their strongest position, that maybe they're taking advantage of that? I mean, I think we have to throw it out there, right? That, maybe they're thriving a little bit off of a weak position. Am I crazy to say that?
I mean, maybe. I mean, like I think I'm looking at a couple of these throws going, I don't care who the corner is. There's nothing they can do about it. Okay. So, and those are the moments like instinction. This one also, and this is what always I feel like is always a separator. Pat Mahomes is who Pat Mahomes is because of his instincts. He has incredible, unmatched, historic instincts. And not everybody can do it. He gets away with a lot of things that other quarterbacks would get, in trouble with the things that he does. But he just instinctually, in my opinion, instinctually, that's the difference for him. He's a great athlete. He's got a great arm, but he makes unbelievable decisions when plays break down. And I think that's what has separated him throughout his career. And I saw a couple of these yesterday. And again, not at that speed, not in a game, not being chased by Kayvon Thibodeau, until that stuff actually starts happening, it's hard to know whether this is going to carry over. But some of the throws, sure, are the corners potentially at a disadvantage against this group? That actually scares me, going against CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown, et cetera. Maybe. But I look more at the decision-making and the throws, and I go, I don't think anybody would have stopped something like that. And that's the difference here. So I like what I see. I see from him. I will bring up this, a lot of conversations been going on the sideline about the wide receiver group and what it's going to end up looking like. Terry is a clear number 1, obviously. Jahan, who spoke to the media yesterday, and I've been kind of hinting at this for a couple of weeks now, I want to make sure he's right. And I mean competent right again. He had a down year. He has openly admitted to he had a really down year. He has openly, when I talked to him last week, admitted to it shook him a little bit. It took him a little while to kind of get through it, get over it. It was the first, some of these guys, they play at this high level and then they get to the pros and realize it isn't that easy. And I think he had his first moment like that. And, I don't know if concern's the right word, but I'm watching him. I want to make sure that he has his confidence back because at his age, his draft status, the amount of big plays he made his rookie year, I don't think anything that happened last year ought to shake his confidence whatsoever, but I'm not him and I don't know how he feels about it. So I want to see where he ends up. So I'm kind of watching him develop here. And I don't know, I want some layups to him early in the preseason. I want some layups to him early in the season to get those juices flowing, remind him who he is, because they need him badly. Like, he is a clear number 2. From there, this is where things get kind of open and interesting. Like, Luke McCaffrey's obviously going to make the team. I haven't seen him do very much. He's a 3rd-round pick, and he's going to make the team. I think Zacchaeus is going to make the team because I think he's a pro. I think he's a good. He can work him inside, outside. They've already name checked him on things they think they can do with him with end arounds and hand it off to him every once in a while. Although I wouldn't do that very often. He's not a big guy. Wouldn't do that very often. But it feels like, and it made sense when they brought him in, that he's probably going to make the team. At this juncture, I think Diami will. I think, because I want to see. I don't see the point of letting him go. I don't think that they have someone who's athletically better than him or has the skill set that he has. And I want one more time. Let's do this one more time in a different offense that might use him down the field a little bit more. And I don't figure him to play extensive plays, but maybe they unlock some of the potential with him. So, and he's cheap, he's like in the end of a rookie contract. So it's not like they're thinking about money with him. So I feel like he's going to be there. Well, that's 5. Is there 6? And if there is 6, is it Crowder? Is it not? And that's going to come down to whether he's the punt returner or not. So he's one of those I'm watching now, just out of numbers. If he's not the primary punt returner, he could be a mild surprise that they look at the end of camp and maybe go with a younger player. Like yesterday, this guy Bryson Tremaine, who Logan Paulson loves, made 2 crazy catches off of Mariota passes that were really, really strong. But across the board, it wasn't just Jayden. Across the board, Mariota had a very good day with passes down the field. Mitchell Tinsley, who made the practice squad last year, was up for a couple games last year. He's had moments where he's flashed. So I don't know that it's their strength, this core, but I do think they have very tough decisions that are coming with some young people versus Crowder. That's how I see it right now.
I think actually I'll back you up one on the depth chart with Diami. I just think he's one of those guys that has to have a really good camp for him to make the team. I know he's had flashes of it, but I think he falls into that category of this regime didn't draft him. This coaching staff has no connections with him. Like, I think they're going to pick the best player. And if he happens to be kind of on the fringe as one of those younger guys, it's not going to shock me if he gets cut. Like, he's a candidate for me to be one of those, like, oh, he actually gets cut at the last minute. Like, I could see that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think he's one of those guys, unless he has a great camp, that one of those other guys could overtake him. Crowder, same thing, but I think Crowder's your veteran, and he gets that advantage too, because if they get an injury at a return or something like that, he can step in there, and he's honestly going to be the guy that can pretty much play, any position if someone goes down. But I look at Brown's the one, to me, like, you circle him as that guy's got to have a good training camp for him to make it through to the next phase.
I am less inclined to see him get cut because I think his talent level's a little bit higher than some of these other guys.
Got it.
But that said, and I would be more inclined as well to go, before you did something like that, I would try to get a low round draft pick for him if you were going to go in that direction. But I feel like his name and Jamin Davis obviously are 2 that I'm watching really, really closely here. Davis, if you just go through the numbers, is going to have a hard time making the team just by the numbers itself, are going to have a hard time making the team. He's going to have to really stand out and show that he can make an impact. If he's not going to be a linebacker and he has to be an edge rusher, and you're going to keep 9 defensive linemen, I could already name the majority of them without getting to him. Allen, Payne, Newton, either Ridgeway or Mathis or both, Dorrance Armstrong, Cleveland Farrell, Dante Fowler. Okay, well, now you're choosing between KJ Henry, Andre Jones, and him. And that's it, because that's all you have on the roster. It's all the room you have. So the numbers crunch him hard, like really, really hard. He's going to have be an impact player if he's not going to be a linebacker, and they're not working him at linebacker. With the receivers, I'll hear you on Diami, and I think there's a lot of competition there on the backside of it, but I think he is a cut above athletically than some of them. And because he doesn't cost them a lot of money, I feel like, why wouldn't they go with him? Because I think they can slip Tremaine or Tinsley to the practice squad. And if things aren't working out or things don't go well, they could always make that change. So I feel like he's more in line to me to make it. I'm more watching Crowder because I look at him and I go, they got Dotson who can play in the inside outside. They got Zacchaeus who could definitively play on the inside. He better be their primary punt returner, because if he's not, I think there could be a numbers crunch for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like I said, I think you'd have to have like a terrible camp for him to actually get
Yes.
cut. But he's the guy I'm circling of like that guy's just got to perform. That's all. And with same thing with Jayden, by the way. Like I'm with you. I thought he'd at least make it through camp, especially when they moved him to edge, and maybe that he could make an impact. But you're right; like there's other more professional names that are there. I mean, he's probably already on the outside looking in, outside of a insane preseason, which I honestly just don't see from him.
Like what Jamin is running into, in my opinion, what he's running into is like he's a very gifted athletic player, but he's trying to learn this new position and he has to be effective. You don't just gift him anything. This is the NFL. And so the clock's ticking on him now to figure this stuff out. And he's a couple weeks away from, if he can't be better than someone like Andre Jones or KJ Henry, then why would they move on with him? And then I'm sitting there going like, he wouldn't beat out somebody like Dante Fowler's been doing this forever. You're not going to be better than him in 2 weeks. You're not going to be better than Farrell in 2 weeks. Like it's just not, they've been doing this too long. So the numbers are just running up against him and the clock is ticking on him. So we'll just have to see if it clicks and a light bulb goes off, because I like him athletically, but they are barely, I mean, if at all, using him as a linebacker, which reads to me like he's not going to make it in that position group at all. Like that page has been turned. And if that page has been turned, then he has to make it the other way, and the numbers don't look good for him. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I will tell you about this too. And this is like what I've seen now for a week of camp, which is where I think the defense could be stronger than people think it's going to be. Johnny Newton was back yesterday. First time. He's not doing a lot yet, but it's a really good sign because we're a week plus away from a preseason game and he's practicing. If as a reminder, he had surgery on both of his feet, one in an injury that they knew of in Illinois, then the exact same injury they found and detected in his other foot, and they preemptively did something about it. So, but he's back and he's running around out there and he's got the look, size, feel, and bravado of someone who's going to be an impact player. So let's see when he gets out there. I'll be very interested when he is healthy. Are he, Payne, and Allen on the field at the same time? Because none of them are pure edge rushers, but they could be nasty in the middle as a threesome. So we'll have to see. Then you've got what I think is the best thing this front office did for this team moving forward, at least for this year. The linebacking core has been revamped in a way that it's actually a strength from being a weakness for the last 4 or 5 years. Like it's a literal strength with Wagner, Luvu, this guy McGee. They have real veterans behind them. Like, no offense, David Mayo, not the David Mayo type spec there, but real actual veterans that you would put on the field, and then you go behind them, and Derek Forrest is an interesting name to watch. Like he's been a starter the last couple of years. Chin and Quan are the starters, at safety. And then what happens with him if they value Reeves as a special teamer? Like, I'm not suggesting he's not going to make the team, but I think he's in a more competitive spot than he was the last couple of years. But that's a good sign because I actually think he's a good player. These are the decisions that show you have actually the building blocks of a very good team. If you have someone who could be a starter other places and he's going to be fighting to keep his job on this one. But that's where like it's all starting to kind of come together for me up the middle. If Allen and Payne are going to be something closer to what they were a couple of years ago, and Newton adds to that depth, and then you have a linebacking core that you trust and might be playmakers for the first time in a long time, and a safety duo and potential depth at that position that is promising and potentially game-changing with Chin, dependent on how he works, and Quan, who they are talking up big as they're describing as the guy who might be their biggest kind of game changer because they can move him around. Up the middle is starting to look extremely strong, maybe stronger than people are giving them credit for. I'm worried about the outside, the edges. Do they get a consistent rush? And the corners, obviously, like who will emerge? But up the middle right now, between the hash marks, I'm starting to really, really, really like what I see. Like, more than I think people are giving them credit for.
Well, I think what got lost with all the linebacker signings too was that just got them actual leaders there too that know what they're doing. Like I know there were some quotes not yesterday, but I think the day before with Wagner talking to you guys and the rest of the media where they were already asking him or telling him like, hey, everyone is already looking at you as like the leader of this defense already. Yep. And that tells you already that they're looking at him. Like we talked about this in the years past. John Allen and Deron Payne can be the elder statesmen, but your leaders of the defense aren't going to be down defensive tackles. It's just not how the NFL works. And I think, not to steal a Joe Gibbs quote, like they seem super smart now at that position, and that they're going to be in a better position in some of these, clutch game scenarios where they're actually just going to play better on certain downs, third downs, where, you just have smarter guys out on the field. That's going to put everyone else in a better position to be a little bit better overall. And so I think what they did is they said, look, we're going to be weak at corner. We're going to be weak at edge rusher, but we're not going to mess up the middle. We're also going to make sure we get some guys that are smart there, that get guys in the right position. And I bet you we're going to get some games too where they're going to stop the run and they're going to force some of these teams to start passing. And that's where Witt and Quinn get in their bag, right? Like we've talked about it all offseason, how some DB is going to be the ball hawk in this defense. And I think this is where they're trying to impact that. They're going, we're going to stop the run and we're going to force you to pass it on the outside.
They're looking strong up the middle. I remember last year when the Falcons designated Cordero Patterson as the Joker, and I thought that was funny when they called him that. I think Quan Martin and Jeremy Chin both may be that for this team. I think there's options with them. I think they're seeing that. They're kind of almost can't help themselves but talk about it, and they don't want to talk about anything, but kind of can't help themselves and talk about it a little bit. And then you see them moving around. Like, I think there's options with them, and they feel very, very good about them because I think they know that the people up front in the middle of the field, Allen, Payne, potentially Newton, and the linebacking crew, they trust them. So I think they're giving them this opportunity to maybe move these parts around, and they could be game-changing type players. The concern is on the outside, obviously. And this is why, like, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and get too optimistic and put on the rose-colored glasses, like, too thick. Because the reality is, like, do they have top flight corners? We don't know. Do they have consistent edge rushers? We don't know. And on the other side of the ball, do they have a tackle that they can rely on? And that is 3 too much prominent positions away from me to go, oh, they'll overcome all of that. Yeah. Like, they're just, if you don't have a top flight corner and you can't consistently bring a pass rush and you can't consistently protect your quarterback, you're going to, like, it's baked in that there's going to be ups and downs. But in the middle of the field, and maybe this is happening on offense too, we're going to find out with Biotish, Cosme, and probably Allegretti, they might be better in the middle of the field there too than people are giving them credit for. So it seems to me that, like, we're seeing the building blocks, and really it's emerged for me, even off of a really good day for the offense. It really became evident that in the middle of the field between the hash marks, I think this team's a lot stronger than people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, take a quick break. Talk about Davante Adams, who doesn't like Washington. First athlete I found doesn't like our city. Back after this. Brad, watch the show. ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Okay.
Yep.
Welcome back. Brad Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Podcast can be found wherever you hear it. We're taping this on YouTube as well, so you can go to the Empire Media YouTube channel. Not every day will you be able to see the show, but most days when Callow is available, you'll be able to see the shows. Callow, see the shows. You get to see us forever. We've always talked about our clothing and our hats and all this stuff. Now you can finally see them.
I'll say I watched a little bit of it yesterday, and now I'm making conscious choices of how I look on camera. So, there's that dynamic now.
Yeah, there's nothing like a mirror. There really is nothing like a mirror when you get to see yourself and you go, wait a minute, do I look like that? And here I am in a hat and a Red Hot Chili Pepper shirt. So, obviously I'm very free. I'm very free spirit on YouTube. Very free.
Nothing really changed for you. You look the same.
I'm trying. I feel like I tell me for 51, dude, I think I'm doing all right. All right. I mean, I'm talking about marbles, but I think I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Just less marble talk, please.
Yeah, the brain's going the wrong way, but everything else seems to go the right way. So I finally reached the point where I'm good looking, but I've lost my mind. Doesn't that suck? All these years, I had the brain for a while, but not the looks. Now I got the looks, I don't have the brain. It just never lined up for me.
You got to pick, 2 of the 3 that you want. You're never going to get all 3. So.
Let me play this little bite for you. You sent me this. Davante Adams looks like he's on Amon-Ra St. Brown's podcast, I guess.
Is that Is that? I know it's the First We Feast. I know they do like hot ones and all that. So yeah, I think that is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they're both, by the way, on the Receiver show. I watched the first 2 episodes of that, and I think this is what this is like promoting that show on Netflix.
Promoting that show. So maybe it was from that. Well, anyway, we have this clip, and I'll play it for you. Here you go. All right, here we go.
And then you got the Washington football team. I mean, they obviously just miserable because the stadium is horrible. The city is not great at all. I'm probably going to get somebody at my front door after this, but that's just how I feel. We on hot ones right now, so it's just a raw and cut.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, terrible. All right. You want to make fun of our stadium. All right. You know what? Like, I'm okay with that at this point. It's not like it's some secret that we have Jerry World here. All right. Or we've got like the state-of-the-art Minnesota Stadium. Fine. But going after the city, you're alone on that one, buddy.
Yes. Like, I talked about this on my show yesterday. LeBron has come out and said he loves DC. Not that he would play here, but he likes coming through here. We've had NBA stars through the generations say they love DC. We've had NFL players do it too. And all I said this, and I'll just repeat it with you here, is, oh, you're just self-tattling at that point. You don't have friends here, is what that is to me. That Davante Adams rolls through here and he doesn't have any kind of connection to the DMV, and he just doesn't know where to go. And you know how this works. When you go to a city and you don't get the recommendations or you don't have friends there, you make mistakes on where you go, and you could think a city sucks because you don't actually know where the good spots are. And to me, this is just self-tattling by Davante. It's a mistake, but come on, man. Don't fry the city. Like, you don't have to do that. I'll take the stadium all day, but you cannot actually make fun of the DMV like that.
I'm trying to figure out here. So he went to school because he went with Carr at Fresno. Isn't he from there or something like that?
Yeah, he's from California. Yep.
He's from California, but he's not from like LA. I think he's from like Fresno or something like that. He went to Fresno State. He played a long time in Green Bay. What? You don't like us?
Right.
What do you like? What do you like, sir? If you if you're like, nah, man, give me Green Bay over Washington all day. Huh. Okay. Let's go live on a farm then. Like, why are you in Vegas? You like Vegas? Why are you there? How about that?
I mean, you've been to Green Bay multiple times. I went for the first time a couple of years ago. Great place to watch a football game, but the best bar in Green Bay doesn't touch the worst bar in Washington, D.C. Like, I don't know what he was getting at there. The only thing I can think of, and I wish he would clarify on this, is, was he talking about Landover? Because if he's talking about Landover, all right, I'll hear you out as an overall city, but it's not a city. It's a suburb of Washington, D.C. So I don't know what he was getting at there. And to me, like I said, I think he was self-tattling because he's not going to trash talk Green Bay, but let's be honest, that's not the best place. And he's not going to talk trash about Vegas being there. But if you want to compare the two, Vegas is very similar to D.C. Not everyone actually lives in the city. It's surrounding areas. So I don't know. We were catching strays for no reason whatsoever there. And I don't really understand it.
That was weird. Well, I mean, listen, not everybody has to like our city, but it seems odd. And I don't know, maybe he's just one of those guys that, like, I don't think Brandon Sheriff liked living here. I actually honestly feel like that's what that was. Like, I don't know. I really had nothing. I have a feeling he just wanted to move somewhere where he could buy a giant piece of property for not a lot of money and drink beers and ride around on a tractor. And you kind of can't do that here. You can, you just have to spend $30 million to do it. And you're going to have 8 million neighbors. Like, there's no, like, I honestly feel like that. I wish I'd like to ask him, like, he would never take our money. I just think it was, he didn't want to live here. Like, actually, it really probably had nothing to do with the team. He just didn't want to live here anymore. And for Adams, apparently he doesn't like cities, I guess.
Well, I mean,
if you don't like this city, then you don't like cities. Because this is like not a hard city to live in. And like, what is he, not like the architecture? He's like the anti-European people I talk about.
Yes.
I don't love it. I don't love it.
What I was going to say, too, is actually on Sheriff's front, too, he actually wouldn't have been that far to get some farmland. He would just have to go west a little bit. Like, he could have gone to West Virginia and had an hour commute to
Yeah, but
Ashburn.
down in Jacksonville, like he could go find something outside that city, like swampland, that's like nothing, and like get 30 acres of it if he wants.
Right, but you and I have always talked about this. We have every type of terrain here within 90 minutes if you really want it. So if he was getting paid,
right, but if you have to go to work every day, living 90 minutes away sucks. Like he could get a giant tract of land in West Virginia, sure, and still be 90 minutes away from the facility every day.
Yeah, well, I mean, pick your poison. You can't have it all. Is what I'm getting at here. But yeah, with Adams, I don't understand it. I think this is more of a self-tattle of he's never actually hung out in the city. That's what it is to me. Because how do we have major athletes like LeBron saying how much they love the scene here, and he's saying it's a terrible city, or I don't know. I don't think he used the word terrible, but not a good city, I think was the phrase he used.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's all self-serving too, because it's like, I love this city, and anybody who says they don't like it bothers me, and I don't know why they don't like it. Like, how did you not have a good time here?
Right. That's what I'm getting
Whatever your interests are. Do you like history? Do you like drinking? Do you like going by a river, a bay, a beach, like a mountain? Like
restaurants? The restaurants here? I mean,
right. What did you not get here? I don't know, but like I'm always the director of tourism around here, so like whatever.
Yeah.
All right. A couple other things going on. I watched the end of Hard Knocks last night, which was the end of the Giants run, 5 episodes. The first 4 I thought were outstanding in terms of access. I don't think they painted the Giants front office as one that has much of a plan, but that's just, my opinion of watching them. I still do want to applaud them for giving us the access that they gave, because in recent years, it's been so surface level that I just haven't found it interesting. But I think in this case, we actually got into their room, got into their inner workings, and heard how they thought about their offseason. And I don't agree with a lot of it. And I would love to hear Giants fans weigh in on whether they agree with a lot of it, but at least we got to see it. This last one was a dud because it was just the 3 days of the draft and who they picked. And frankly, they picked 6th and took Malik Neighbors. Like, it was pretty set in stone what the first 3 picks were going to be. Actually, the first 4 with Marvin Harrison. And they it was so drawn out, that like, if you really were paying any attention, there really was no intrigue about what anybody was going to do, because they showed them trying to call New England to get the number 3 overall pick to take Drake May, and they got turned down. So they knew they were taking him, and they knew Harrison would go 4. So it was drawn. It was the one episode that was just totally drawn out for kind of no reason. Like they had already set up that everybody knew what was going to happen, at least with the first 4. They had to wait out 1 pick to get the guy they wanted, and it settled on we'd take a number of different people. I think the only thing that I found interesting about that was this. They were going to go out of their way and pay a price to get Drake May, but they didn't want to take J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix with their own pick. That's interesting to me. That's interesting. They were going to go out. So they think Drake May is that much better than those players, that much better, that they were willing to basically eat it on Jones, somehow try to get out of that contract and pay a hefty price. Next year's first round pick, another whatever this year to get Drake May, but they could add McCarthy or Penix and chose not to go in that direction. And I'd like to hear why. I mean, they shouldn't never answer that question, but I'd like to hear why.
To me, that made them look like the smartest they had been in the entire show, because when we were talking about the draft for the literal months leading up to it, those were the 3 guys, the impact quarterbacks. Remember, JJ, it took a little bit for him to actually move up, right? So I think for them, it actually settled out of, okay, we value these 3 guys completely different than the next 2. I actually think that was smart, that they were going, we'll trade up for that one. And on the May one, because that's the only one they would have had a small percentage chance of actually getting, that actually would have been better for them, because Jones would have played anyways, and then you got to sit him for most of the year, and maybe you play him at the end or whatever, because even the Patriots are going to probably not start him right away, right? So I actually think that made them look a little bit smarter, but I don't know. I'm all about sticking to your rankings. If you thought those 3 were way better than the other 2 and not take the other 2, I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that. I mean, if you're gonna go with that. Yeah.
I'm for that too. I said all along, I think you go hard at the guy you want.
Yep.
That you don't go, I'll take any of them. Really? You'll take any of them. Is that right? Like that to me is, it's like kind of showcases, well, you're desperate. Like, why don't you go after the guy you want? And if you can't get him, then you move. I personally, and I don't know this, but like by the end of the draft process, I wasn't sure that McCarthy wasn't a better prospect than May, and I wasn't sure that Penix wasn't a better prospect than May. But that's just me, and they clearly didn't think that. So, but there is a part of me that also, like, in hearing that, goes, okay, and that's just my opinion. And there were some others that felt that way, but New England didn't, obviously, because they could have done something different if they wanted to. Like, there is part of me that goes, did they fall into the talking points? Again, are they sports radio where they hear, well, there's a drop off after 3, even if their own like evaluations would suggest otherwise? You know what I mean? Like, everyone said there's a drop off, so we believe that, so we can't take this guy now. And the Falcons bucked that by taking Penix earlier than, people thought they were going to. And obviously it's complicated because they have Cousins there, but the Giants seem to have fallen into narratives. And this is the second time that and maybe they don't think Penix or McCarthy are May. And that's fair, like, for them to feel that way. But it's the second time in this series where I listen to them and I'm going, you really just want to get a quarterback very badly. Obviously, you didn't get one of the ones you wanted. A lot of people seem to think that those other two might be as good as Drake May, but you don't think that, so you've just decided, you're going to go with you're going to follow a narrative. And the same way that I think you followed we can't pay a running back narrative that they followed throughout this, without like looking at, he's a special player. You're not treating him like a special player. You're treating him like the sports radio argument of, you can't pay a running back that much money. Who said? Like, the 49ers seem to do okay paying Christian McCaffrey what they paid him. This guy's a special player. You don't treat him that way. So it's the second time, multiple times, that I've watched this and I go, they fall into narratives. I don't hear their thinking very often, and I'm not really sure what their plan is. That's where I kind of landed on them.
I was just going to, overall, in the whole arc of the show, and maybe you can agree or disagree with me, I just can't believe how openly they just don't want Daniel Jones at this point. Like, the fact that we've gone on a month.
Can you not believe that, though? I mean,
just openly, though, wanting another
quarterback. We're
quarterback.
all being real here. Can you not believe that?
I mean, I'm just saying, how we've jumped in the NFL, where everyone's like, oh yeah, they need a new quarterback. He's still on the roster. He's going to start this entire year. And they've just talked the whole entire show about how they need another quarterback. I just find it really funny that this is just where we are in the news cycle in the NFL, that everyone's going, yeah, they're right. And like, nobody's asked Daniel Jones about, hey, they wanted to trade you this entire offseason or get your replacement this entire offseason. And then it's like, oh, he's going to start. That's going to be what happens this year. I don't know. To me, that's the funniest part about all of this. And it's like, training camp rolls on. He's cleared to go and he's going to be the starter. I don't know. I think that's the funniest part about this entire show, is that it's literally revolved around replacing him, essentially. And they didn't. And he's just going to be the starter again for one more year. I don't know. It's funny to me.
I haven't, maybe I just haven't paid close attention. He must have done a press conference by now. If a Giants
had to. Yeah.
I can't believe that hasn't made news. He must have just blown it off, because how could people not ask him? We saw your GM talk about not like wanting to move on from you and try to trade up for other people. How do you feel about that? And Senator Dimes, I think, had probably must have said something just so nonchalant about it that it didn't even make news, because I didn't even see anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let me take a quick break. Brad Watch the Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Brad Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, I mentioned this earlier, but for whatever reason, the O's are loading up, Han. What do you think? I mean, they're actually, it's not like one little move here or there. They're getting multiple starters. They've gotten a couple relievers, albeit not the primary and premier ones. But, if the complaint was they're not going for it, I think you're going to have a hard time complaining this time around that they're not going for it. They are. And, I guess we'll just see how it shakes out with the guys that they brought in.
Yeah, I mean, they went after every position that I think they needed to shore up. And look, this is kind of Mike Elias I trust here. They made a little bit more moves than they did last year too. Remember, it was really disappointing last year when they only got one starter and it wasn't even a top of the line starter. It ended up being worse. One of the rare ones where they got a pitcher and he was worse here in Baltimore.
I think they got publicly bullied into doing something. And so they did something small to try to get everybody off their back because they didn't really want to do anything, which is where on this one, because of new ownership and because of new commitment to spending money, which they did immediately in the offseason by bringing in Corbin Burns in the first place, with this new commitment to money being spent, I have a funny feeling that it's somewhere in the middle, that this owner wants them to go for it. Whether Elias wants to go for it to the degree that he is going for it that's a question only he can answer. And seeing his media availability so far, I doubt he would ever answer a question like that. So I think it's somewhere in the middle a little bit.
What also had started, last week with Austin Hayes getting moved. He was one of the ones that was log jammed in the lineup. And look at who they traded to Tampa yesterday. It was Stowers and Norby, and the same thing. They were both kind of stuck. They couldn't actually crack the lineup every day, and they trade him for a 26-year-old starter who has a couple years of control, by the way. Like, that was actually a pretty savvy move by them. They're going, we need starters regardless down the line. So they're going to get him for another couple of seasons, most likely. And I just look at this as the Orioles actually just kind of shuffling their roster around a little bit, because guess what? There's more prospects behind all of these other guys. So they have to start kind of unloading them in general. Not that they have to for nothing, but I think this is what happened yesterday is they just started making some moves. And not only this, a couple of those moves yesterday, straight up cash considerations. That is not something the Angelos regime would have done. So
Never.
The Orioles straight up just throwing cash at some of these teams, to get, a utility guy or a reliever or whatever here. So no, it's a completely different narrative for them. And I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see that, especially that they had a better deadline, I think, than the Yankees did. I think everyone expected the Yankees to make one more move yesterday, but I think they're putting themselves right in position to win the division again.
Yeah. Jackson Holiday's coming back up too. So we'll see how that goes. That was a rough start. That was funny. That was another one. They got publicly bullied into calling him up. They were reluctant to do it. Then he came up and he went on he had a really, really rough stretch at the plate. And so they sent him back down, and I don't blame him because they just let him get his head right. He's got a long future ahead of him. So let's see how this goes now, because the pressure is a little bit different. They kind of got to keep winning now. So it's going to be interesting when they bring him back up.
No, exactly. And I mean, I think the pressure's a little bit off of him now, at least, because they're going, look, you're second call up here. Not everybody's watching you. You're not going to be relied upon to score all these runs. Everyone else is. Just simplify your game. Have a better approach to all of it.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think of 17-0, which was the final score of the Nationals game yesterday?
On my show, I threw out 17.5 outs was your over-under for Patrick Corbin last night. The under hit very easily last night. Do you want to hear some of the stats Mark Zuckerman threw out last night? 17-0 is their worst loss ever.
It should be.
Okay. 11 earned runs by Patrick Corbin is the most given up by a starter. I mean, I think it's worth saying this team was the worst team in baseball for a couple years running there in like 08, 9, I don't think 10, but that's how they got Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg, and they never had an outing like that. Patrick Corbin, bar none, the worst starter maybe of all time in this franchise's history with how much they have thrown him out there, yet he was so integral in 2019. It's so funny. We're on the home stretch of this contract with him. It can't get much worse.
Clock. Like, we should do the math. How many starts does he have left? Like,
there's someone did it last night. There's like
10, maybe.
Yeah, there's 50 games left, so he should get around 10 if he's healthy. By the way, he's on career win 99. He was going up against his old team last night too. Remember, he used to play for the Diamondbacks. So everybody was like, well, if he's going to get 100, maybe he'll get it last night. No, not so fast. He ends up getting shelled. He's bar none the worst starter. There are pieces being written about him, about how he has the worst contract in baseball. And the Nats, because they've just been bad, have just kept trotting him out there. And they say that's the most shocking thing with Corbin is that because the Nats are in the position that they are, they just need an innings eater, and he's become that. He's the most expensive innings eater of all time.
Last thing, I only have like a minute here because I'm running out of time. But did you see, because Alex Ovechkin did an interview with like his friend in Russia, and I'm going to talk later with you this week about some of the other things he talked about, which was like chasing the record and all that type of stuff. But he was asked if he had $100 million, and he said, no, of course I don't. And I'm like, trying to do the math of how long he played, knowing what his salary was, assuming that he's had sponsorships throughout his career, going, how do you not have that amount of money? How?
Well, his career,
how would he not have that amount of money?
His career earnings, you got to remember, NHL contracts aren't crazy. That first contract he signed here was like $108 million. Cut that in half for taxes. And then he signed another deal here. Probably wasn't 50 million, probably close to it. He's definitely exaggerating because he was sponsored by CCM and Nike for a majority of his career. And then also the other thing is, go look at his Russian sponsorships. He's sponsored in Russia by like Coca-Cola, Nike. Here he's sponsored by Papa John's. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't know, or maybe he just doesn't want to flaunt that he has 100 mil. I think it was more, I don't have 100 mil from my playing career. That's what I gathered from it.
I'm like, how would you not have that amount of money? Like,
right.
And like, he doesn't come off to me as someone who's buying yachts or doing crazy spending on things. Like, he doesn't come off that way to me. So I'm like, how, like, it would be impossible for you to not have that. All that said, I also wouldn't tell the Russian government how much money I had. Be reluctant to tell them how much money I actually had. But that, you do you.
You do have to realize early in his career, he was a big spender on cars. He had like a little bit of a super fleet of fast sports cars. Now, did they trade those in when they had kids? Probably. So I don't know what that shook out to, but I do know he had some crazy cars at the beginning of his career, and that probably went for 5, 6, 7 years. So not to say that that's millions and millions of dollars, but he was spending there a little bit. And I will say this too, the guy does, people don't realize this, spend a lot of money when it comes to nutrition and his private chef and his private trainer, that he flies over from Russia. I'm just saying he spends on himself a good amount. There's a reason why he's Russian machine never breaks. I know.
I'm just like,
we make fun of him.
League. He's the face of the league.
Yeah.
It's hard not to have made that.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about what he said later this week. All right, Cal, I'll talk to you. Brave Watch the Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.